We also know that this is the amount of aneversion he has. If his femoral neck went in this way, compared to the axis of his knee, he'd have 0 degrees of aneversion. If his femoral neck's coming straight up like this, he has 90 degrees of aneversion. Well, he's got a heck of a lot of aneversion. And so one of the good things about the blade plate is it's got that holder on it, and I can now measure what I want his aneversion to be. Okay, good. So this is great. Our first shot's right up the neck. So we will take our blade plate chisel, and I'll want to make sure here that I'm not flexed or extended. If I wanted to flexes, I'd do this. If I wanted to extend them, I'd do that. And okay, good. So we'll take a look just to make sure that everything is real. And you can see we don't have a whole lot of extra room here, but we will skive up, we will make it. Okay, hang on. Give me that other slappy, let's see how that thing works. The offset difference between these is the shoulder is really big on this one and the shoulder is smaller. And so if you use this plate, you're going to push the shaft more medially. And so that has some mechanical advantages. I don't like it because it creates too big of a hump over their hip. So I use the smaller offset. And I think this is a good amount of offset. It'll line them up very nicely. And so once we've got this chisel in, our angle is bought. That's exactly the angle we're going to have unless we deform or bend our blade plate. And so what we're going to do is our first cut is going to be parallel to the chisel right at about that level. So I'm going to be parallel to my chisel. I don't want to be up here, obviously, or I'll cut into the femoral neck. I want to be down too low because that's not where the shoulder, the width of that shoulder. Additionally, here's the lesser trochanter, and a good place to take out our trapezoid of bone is going to be right through that. So we'll make our first cut here. Now in the past, I used to always have to make a mark for aneversion. Now I don't have to do that because the handle on this plate, you'll see, will let us know exactly the aneversion we've got. Good, perfect. And so now what we're going to do is, rather than just cut a wedge out here, I want to shorten this. I want to shorten this bone because that's going to allow the femur to go in much easier. And so what we're going to do, give that saw again, is we're going to take out a trapezoid right about there. Good. There you go. Just that straight meat. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, so now what you can see is the head was here. Now I can put it wherever I want. And a 90-degree blade plate is going to hold this just like that. Now that may be a little bit high. In fact, it probably is a little bit high. I might want this to be about that angle, in which case I would want whatever that looks like compared to the floor, 110 degrees or so. So I may want to bend the blade plate, but I want to look up top and see what it takes to get that divot completely covered into the socket. And it's just about 90. So that's sort of our consideration is, you make them too varus, you can't spread very far, so it's just trying to figure out a little bit of what kind of problem I want to have, the sitting problem or abduction problem. So I'm trying to bend the blade plate to give us a little bit more angle. There you go. So it's not quite 90 degrees. So what I've done is I've bent it up maybe 10 degrees or so. And that'll give us just a little bit more motion, a little bit more range there. Okay, so what we need to do is take out this. Good. So we're taking that pin out because now it's bent. The blade plate is bent, so I'm putting a new pin in. When I bent the blade plate, it crimped down the little hole in the blade plate, so a 2mm wire fit through, so we switched it for a smaller wire. And slide that over. And so you still want to be careful with your angle to make sure you're not going to cut a new channel. These CP kids often have weaker bone. This is going in nicely, but I will check x-ray anyway to make sure. Yep, good. Okay. Good. So now we've got the blade plate right down where we wanted it. Our angle is chosen by virtue of the angle we put into the blade plate. And so now we're going to fix it to the femur. Right now I can read the anteversion as far as how much I've rotated this. Because remember, that holder initially was right in like this. So now my anteversion, and I don't want to make him 0, and he's not. He's at about 20 or so degrees of anteversion. Okay, so anteversion looks good, about 20 degrees. So let's put a locking screw here. Again, if I put a regular screw, it'll change the angle of that. So we'll put a locking screw there. What's unique to this is the depth gauge actually measures the length of the screw. So let's take an 18 instead. So we're putting our first screw in, the locking screw. It's going to make sure it holds the angle. And then what we can do is now we can really get a look at this. Now we can take this clamp off. We can lie him down, see what his leg looks like, how he lies on the table. Let me take this off and see how he lies on the table. See what his anteversion is, see if he's got too much. He might actually have a little bit too much anteversion. No, actually he lies pretty good. You want him comfortably externally rotated. And then when you raise him up, you don't want him too externally rotated so he can't sit square in his wheelchair. This is sort of the moment of truth. Good. So it looks good. We're happy with the position. The divot is just covered where we want it to be. He is not retroverted, which would be bad because then it would point the head out the back of the acetabulum. And so he may be a little bit more anteverted than I might want, but he lies comfortably externally rotated. You don't want to finish this and have him over like that. That doesn't help him. So we're going to just put the rest of our screws in here.